She was hungry poor and had no proper place to sleep. He was rich powerful and had everything money could buy. But when his car broke down in the middle of the road, she did something no one saw coming. How did one small act of kindness from a poor girl change a rich man's life forever? Sit back and find out as we dive into this powerful story. This is the story of how a poor, homeless girl helped a young billionaire and changed both their lives forever. It was a quiet evening in Abuja. The sky was slowly turning dark and the road was empty. A man named Eric, a young rich man in the city of Abuja, was driving home in his big black car. He had just left a business meeting at a nearby town. His mind was full, he was tired and wanted to get home quickly. But then something strange happened. The car made a strange sound. Eric frowned. "What's going on now?" he said, turning down the air conditioner. Suddenly, the car stopped in the middle of the road. He turned the key again. Nothing. He stepped out of the car and looked around. There were no houses nearby, no cars, no people, only silence. He checked the engine, but he didn't really know what he was looking at. He looked at the road again, still empty. He then dialed his mechanic's phone number, but it wasn't connecting. He looked around one more time. The road was still quiet. The only sound was the wind blowing through the trees. He had been standing there for almost 20 minutes. His white shirt was starting to soak with sweat. He was tired and a bit angry. Then he saw something. Someone was walking on the other side of the road. It was a young lady. She looked about 26 or 27. Her clothes were old and torn. In some places, she had a small bag hanging on her shoulder. Her hair was rough. Her slippers looked worn out. She walked slowly like someone who hadn't eaten all day. Eric frowned. Who walks here at this time? He asked himself. The lady looked weak. Her face showed tiredness, but also strength, like someone who had faced many hard days but was still standing. That girl was Stella. She had no home, no family in Abuja. She had been sleeping in a wooden shelter behind a small shop a bit far from that road. And yet, even with all her pain, she noticed the man by the car, and she stopped walking. Stella saw the car bonnet open. The man beside it looked worried. He kept pressing buttons on his car key and looking into the engine like he was searching for something. She stood for a moment, then took a deep breath and crossed the road. Eric looked up when he heard footsteps. "Good evening, sir," Stella said gently. Eric stared at her. He was too shocked to reply. "Sir," she asked calmly, "do you need help?" Eric paused. He looked at her again. He didn't know whether to trust her or send her away. Instead of answering her question, he asked, "Young lady, what's your name, and what do you know about a car engine?" Stella smiled a little and said, "Sir, I think you are judging a book by its cover." Eric froze. That one sentence hit him deep. He took a step back and looked at her again. Dirty slippers, old clothes, hungry face. But her words were strong. He let out a small sigh and said, "I was driving back from a business meeting. Everything was fine until the car just went off. No sound, no smoke. Nothing. It just stopped and it hasn't started again." Stella nodded. "I understand." She said, "By the way, my name is Stella." Eric gave her a small smile. "I'm Eric." Then he stepped aside and said, "Let's see what you can find." Sharky. Stella walked closer to the car. She looked inside the engine carefully. Eric watched her, still not sure if this was a good idea, but he stayed quiet. Stella gently touched some wires. She looked closely at the battery. Then she noticed something. A wire had come loose. It was a simple thing, but it could stop the whole car from starting without wasting time. She carefully fixed the wire back in place. "Okay, sir," she said, "you can try now." Eric blinked. "Are you sure?" Stella nodded. "Yes, go ahead." Eric walked to the driver's side. He opened the door, sat down and turned the key. The engine came on. The car started like nothing had happened. Eric jumped out quickly and stared at the engine. "You fixed it?" he asked. Stella nodded again. Smiling, it was just a small loose wire. Eric couldn't believe it. This girl who looked like she didn't have a dime in her pocket had just fixed his expensive car. He reached into his car, brought out some money and handed it to her. "Take this," he said, "please," but Stella took a step back. "No, sir," she said gently. "I only helped because I could. Kindness is not meant to be sold." Eric stood there shocked. He had met many people, rich people, smart people, powerful people, but very few would help without asking for something in return. This girl was different, and he knew he would never forget her. Eric looked at Stella again. He could still hear her words in his mind. Kindness is not meant to be sold. He brought out a small white card from his wallet and stretched it toward her. Take this. He said, come to Joshua Petroleum Limited tomorrow morning, ask for me. My name is Eric, the address is in the card. Stella looked at the card. Her hand shook a little as she took it. She didn't say anything. Her eyes looked confused. Eric smiled gently. Don't worry, just come. Stella slowly nodded. She looked at the card again, then kept it inside the small bag she always carried. Thank you, sir. She finally said. Eric stepped into his car as he drove off. He looked at her in the mirror. He didn't know why, but something in his heart told him that he would see her again that night. Stella sat on the cold floor inside the wooden shelter where she slept. The wind was blowing. She opened her small bag and brought out the card. She looked at it again. For the fourth time, she read the name slowly. Josh Wick Petroleum Limited. She sighed. Then she reached into her sack and brought out the only thing she had left, half a loaf of bread. No butter, just water and dry bread. She took a bite and sat back thinking all through the week she had been going to the construction site where she worked as a laborer, but for days now there had been no work. The man in charge said the building materials had not arrived, so no job, no payment. She looked at the bread in her hand and then looked at the card again. She whispered to herself, if I had taken that money Eric offered me, maybe I would have eaten well tonight. But then she shook her head. No, she said softly. If I had taken that money, then my help would feel like business. Like I only helped him for something. She closed her eyes, then opened them and looked at the card again. Something inside her said, go try, you have nothing to lose. She placed the card back in her bag and whispered, I'll go. The next morning, Stella woke up very early. After preparing, she made her way to Joshua Petroleum Limited. She stood in front of the gate for a while, holding the card tightly in her hand. The building looked too big, too shiny, too rich, but she took a deep breath and walked to the gate. Two security men stood there as soon as they saw her, worn-out slippers and faded dress. They started laughing. Madam, are you lost? One of them said, this place is not for beggars. Stella held up the card quickly. I came to see Mr. Eric. She said. The second man laughed louder. You mean who, Eric, the boss? How is that possible? Stella felt embarrassed. People walking by were starting to stare. I met him yesterday. He gave me this card, she said, her voice shaking, but the guards didn't believe her. Stella didn't know what else to say. Her heart started beating fast. She felt like turning back, but she didn't. In the office on the third floor, Eric stood by the window talking with one of his staff. Then something caught his eye. He looked down and saw a young lady at the gate. He looked again, and his eyes widened. That's her, he shouted before the staff could say anything. Eric had already rushed out. He didn't wait for the lift. He ran down the stairs 3 steps at a time. The guards at the gate were still arguing with Stella when the big office doors burst open. Eric ran out pointing at her. Hey, let her in, he said. The guards turned in shock. This girl, one of them asked. Yes, Eric said. She's my guest, let her in. The guards quickly opened the gate. We are sorry, sir, they said. We didn't know. Eric didn't answer them. He turned to Stella. Why didn't you call me? He asked gently. I don't have a phone, she said, looking down. He nodded. Come with me. Stella followed him slowly. She had never entered such a big building before. The floor was shining. The glass doors opened on their own. People wore suits and greeted Eric with respect. Stella held her small bag tightly. She felt shy. She felt small, but Eric turned to her and smiled. Don't worry, he said. You're safe here. Burkino. When they got to Eric's office, he opened the door and asked Stella to sit down. She sat slowly, her eyes moving around the big office. It was clean, bright, and smelled nice. She had never entered a place like that before. Eric sat across from her. He looked at her gently. How are you feeling today? He asked. I'm fine, sir, Yakuri, she said quietly. He nodded. Tell me about yourself, your family. Where do you stay? Stella looked down. I don't have a family. I grew up in an orphanage when I turned 18. I had to leave since then. I've just been trying to survive. Eric's eyes became serious. That must be hard. She nodded. Did you go to any school after the orphanage? She shook her head. No, sir, I only finished secondary school. I wanted to go further, but there was no money. I had to work to feed myself. Eric was quiet for a while. He tapped his fingers on the table, thinking. Then he looked at her again. Stella, I want to help you, but I don't. Just want to give you money. I want to help your future. She blinked fast. Sir, I'll get you a personal teacher, someone who will teach you and prepare you for the exams you need to enter university. Stella opened her mouth, but no words came out. I also want you to start working here in the garage. Eric added, it's a cleaning job. Nothing too hard. You'll be paid every month, and I'll give you a room in the staff quarters, so you don't have to sleep on the street again. Her lips shook. Sir, thank you, sir. Eric smiled. You deserve a better life, Stella. Let's start from here. From that day, Stella began a new life. She cleaned the garage early every morning. She made sure the tools were in order and the floors were clean when her tutor came. She took notes and asked questions. She wanted to learn and change her story. So she worked, studied, and prayed. One hot afternoon, the garage was full of noise and laughter. A staff named James had a flat tire. He was sweating and didn't know what to do. Where's the jack? James shouted. It's there. Another staff member replied, pointing to a corner. Stella walked over quietly. Let me help, she said. James looked at her surprised. You sure? Stella nodded. I know how to do it. She picked up the tools and knelt beside the tire. She worked fast and carefully. She knew what to loosen and how to fix it. In 10 minutes, the tire was changed, unknown to her. Eric had walked in. He stopped at the door and watched everything. When Stella stood up and wiped her hands, Eric walked over. Stella, he said. She turned around quickly. Sir? He looked at the tire, then at her. Where did you learn all this? She smiled. I had a friend. He was a mechanic. I used to help him in his workshop before he went back to his village. Eric smiled too. You just keep surprising me. Stella laughed a little and looked away shyly, but deep inside Eric's heart, something warm had started growing. He wasn't just impressed, he was proud. And for the first time in a long while, he was interested. Really interested. From that day, Eric began to watch Stella more closely. He didn't make it too obvious, but he noticed everything. She cleaned the garage every morning before others arrived. She never complained about anything. She greeted everyone with a smile, even the ones who looked down on her. When there was no work, Stella would go to a corner by the side of the building. With her books on her lap, she read slowly, moving her finger along each line so she wouldn't miss a word. Sometimes she would help the older staff carry tools. Sometimes she would clean places out of her job description. But what caught Eric's heart the most was how she treated people. She was always kind. She didn't gossip. She didn't act like she was better than anyone. Even when someone insulted her, she just smiled and walked away. One day, he stood at the window of his office watching her sweep the corner near the generator house. She didn't see him. She was focused. He smiled to himself. How can someone go through so much, he said quietly, and still have such a good heart? There was something different about her, and for the first time in a long while, Eric made a gentle decision. One Friday afternoon, Eric called his driver. Tell Stella to meet me in front of the building. I want her to follow me for lunch. He said. The driver blinked. Sir, Stella from the garage. Yes, go now. 5 minutes later, Stella stood outside, wiping her hands on her clothes. She looked confused. Sir, you sent for me, she asked. Eric smiled. Yes, I'm going for lunch. Come with me. Her eyes widened. Sir, me to lunch? Yes, just lunch. Don't be afraid. She nodded slowly and followed him into the car. They drove to a quiet restaurant not far from the office. It was beautiful. Soft music played in the background. Stella looked around, feeling out of place when the food came. She stared at the knife and fork. Eric noticed. Do you want me to show you how to use it? He asked kindly. She looked down, embarrassed. I don't really know how. That's okay, he said, smiling. Let me show you. He gently took her hand and showed her how to hold the fork. She laughed a little. I feel like a child. No, he said softly. You're just learning, and there's nothing wrong with that. They ate quietly for a while. Then he asked, How are the home lessons going? Very well, sir, she replied. My teacher says, I'm improving. I'm trying hard. I can see that. Eric said, you're doing well. They talked more about books, her dreams, her past at the orphanage, and her hope to become something more. There was no pressure, just a simple lunch, but something had started to grow. Not just respect, but something deeper, and they both felt it, even though no one said a word about it yet. But something began to happen at the company. It started with whispers. Staff would look at Stella and whisper behind her back, why is the boss always smiling at her? Did you see him walk into the garage again today? What's so special about her? Some even laughed and called her names when she walked by. But Stella kept quiet. She didn't answer anyone. She just kept doing her job. But one person wasn't just whispering. She was burning with anger. Victoria, Eric's personal assistant, watched from her office window. Every day she had worked with Eric for 2 years. She always dressed well. She always spoke softly when he was around. She always brought him tea, even when he didn't ask. But Eric never looked at her twice now. This girl, this poor, uneducated girl from the street, was the one getting his attention. Victoria's heart boiled one evening when Eric was in his office alone. Victoria knocked and stepped in. Sir, can I speak with you? She asked sweetly. Eric looked up. Yes, Victoria, what is it? She sat down slowly. I just want to tell you something important. It's about Stella. Eric raised his head. What about her? Victoria leaned forward. Sir, please don't be upset, but you need to be careful. These street girls, they know how to act innocent. They pretend to be kind, but their eyes are always on money. Eric stared at her. She's using you, Victoria said in a low voice. People like her, they always come with a plan. There was silence in the room. Eric sat back, still staring at her. Then he said quietly, Thank you, Victoria. You may go now. Victoria stood up slowly. Yes, sir. As she closed the door, she smiled to herself. But what she didn't know was that Eric didn't believe a word she said. Eric sat at a table with 3 of his business partners in a private lounge. They were all older men, rich, powerful. They had helped him grow his company when he first started. They were like family to him. After talking about a new deal, one of them cleared his throat. Eric, he said, can we speak as elders now? Eric nodded. Of course. The man leaned in. We've been hearing things about a girl. Joshua looked at them. A cleaner at your company? Another added, she's the one people say you're always around. Eric smiled lightly but said nothing. We know you're a good man. First one continued, but you must be careful. You're not just anyone, you are a big name in business now. Another one spoke, if people begin to spread stories, it won't be good for your image. You know how this country is? Eric folded his hands. I understand your concern, he said. But Stella is just someone I'm helping. She has no family, no education, no support. One of them shook his head. Yes, help her, but don't get too close. People won't understand it. People will twist it. Another warned, you know how fast news spreads. Eric stayed calm. I've heard you. He said, I will handle it. They nodded and changed the topic. But as they spoke about other things, Eric's mind was far away. He looked down at his glass and thought to himself, why is the world always ready to judge what it doesn't understand? He knew he had to be careful, but he also knew something else. He was beginning to care about Stella more than he expected. Stella heard the whispers she saw, how people looked at her. Some laughed behind her. Some called her names, desperate cleaner. Who does she think she is? She wants to trap the boss. Every day at work felt heavier. She would smile in front of others, but her heart was tired. She didn't want trouble. She didn't ask for any of this that night. She sat alone in her small corner at the staff quarters. Her hands were shaking. She held her lesson books in her lap and stared at them. School was the only thing that gave her hope, but even that was not enough anymore. I didn't come here to be insulted. She said to herself. She thought about her life, no parents, no real friends, no home of her own, and now everyone at work looked at her like she was a thief, like she stole something that wasn't hers. She tried to be strong, but she was tired that night while everyone slept. She folded her clothes quietly into her bag. She placed her books on top and zipped it up. She looked around her small space one last time. Then she walked out slowly into the night without telling anyone. She didn't know where she was going, but she knew she couldn't stay there anymore. Eric walked into the company the next morning with a smile ready to ask Stella about her lesson work, but when he got to the garage, she wasn't there. He asked another cleaner, "Have you seen Stella today?" The man shook his head. "No, sir. She didn't come to work." Eric checked her room at the staff quarters. It was empty, the bed was neat, her bag was gone. He felt a strong pain in his chest. He called her number. It was switched off. He called again, still off. He drove back to the same street where he met her the first time. He sat in his car for hours, watching the road, hoping she would walk by. But she didn't come day after day. He kept going back there morning, evening, night. He asked the people who walked by, "Have you seen a girl called Stella?" He described her. Some said no, some just shook their heads. The phone he gave her had stayed off since she left. His heart was heavy. He couldn't sleep well. He missed her voice. He missed her laugh. But more than anything, he missed the peace he felt each time he was around her, and now she was gone. It had been 3 long weeks since Stella disappeared. Eric had searched everywhere. He asked the cleaners, the kitchen staff, even the gate man. But no one had seen her. Then one Tuesday morning, while Eric stood by the company car park, one of the company bus drivers walked up to him quietly. "Good morning, sir," the driver said. Eric nodded. "Good morning." The driver looked around and lowered his voice. "Sir, I saw that girl." Eric's eyes widened. "What girl?" "The cleaner, the one they used to call Stella." Eric stepped closer. "Where did you see her?" "Yesterday evening around 500 Rao P. She was at a construction site in a remote part of the city. I was driving past when I saw her. She was working at the construction site." Eric's heart jumped. "Are you sure it was her?" "I'm very sure, sir. I even slowed down to look." "Well, it was her." Eric didn't waste time. He pulled his car key from his pocket and stretched it to the driver. "Take me there now." The drive to the area felt long. Eric didn't speak much. He kept looking out the window, his hands tight on his lap. When they got to the construction site, Eric stepped out. The sound of hammers and shovels filled the air. Men were moving sand, carrying blocks, mixing cement. Then he saw her, Stella. She was wearing a big old t-shirt and long brown skirt. On her head was a block, a heavy one. She was walking slowly across the site. Eric stood still. His eyes followed her every step. She looked thinner. Her face looked tired, but her eyes still full of quiet strength. He felt his chest tighten. What kind of woman is this? He thought. I gave her a chance to go to school. I gave her an opportunity for a better life. But when that life brought her shame and pain, she walked away with nothing, and now she's here carrying blocks. Like a man, tears pushed at his eyes, but he blinked them away. He took a step forward, then another, and then he called out, "Stella!" Stella looked up at Eric. Her hands were shaking. She slowly bent down and dropped the block from her head. Then she wiped her face with her dirty sleeve and asked softly, "How did you find me?" Eric took a step closer. She didn't look him in the eye. "I left that side of the city on purpose," she said quietly. "I didn't want to bring you shame again. I knew I didn't belong in your world." Eric looked at her with so much care. He took her hand gently. "Stella, you don't belong on the street either." He said, "You belong in my life." Before she could reply, Eric pulled her close and hugged her right there at the construction site. He didn't care about the dust on her body. He didn't care that her clothes were dirty. He held her like someone who had found something very special. The workers on the site all stopped what they were doing. One of them whispered, "Wait, is that not Stella?" Another one said, "How does she know this rich man?" They all watched in surprise, but Eric didn't even notice them. He looked at Stella again and said, "Get in the car." She shook her head lightly. "Eric, but he stopped her. "Please, Stella, get in the car." She looked at his face, then smiled a little, and quietly followed him to the car. Eric turned to the driver and said, "Let's go." They drove straight to a big boutique. Eric picked clothes for her new dresses, shoes, and even a nice bag. Stella just stood there, speechless after shopping. He said, "There's somewhere else I want to show you." Soon they arrived at a beautiful, short-let apartment. It was quiet, clean, and full of bright light. His younger sister, Anita, who managed the place, came out smiling. Eric said, "She will be staying here for now." Anita nodded and handed the key to Stella. Stella walked in slowly and looked around the room. Was like a dream-soft bed, small kitchen, and a sweet smell in the air. She turned to Eric with tears in her eyes. Eric, this is too much, she said, but he smiled and said, you're not going back to the company. She blinked, what? Eric stepped closer. You've done enough hard work, now I'll set up a business for you, something you can run while going to school. Stella covered her mouth with her hand. She couldn't believe it. This was the same girl who used to sleep outside in the cold. Now someone cared enough to give her a second chance. And this time she wasn't going to run away 1 year later. Stella stood outside the university gate with a big smile on her face. She wore a simple white shirt and blue jeans. In her bag was her student ID card. She had just finished her morning class in mechanical engineering. She looked happy and full of life. Things had changed. She now walked with confidence. Eric arrived in his car to pick her up like he always did when she saw him. Her eyes lit up. Hey, he said, smiling as he opened the car door for her. Good afternoon, Eric, she said, getting in. How was class today? He asked as he started the car. It was great, we did practicals. I fixed a small engine, she replied, laughing. Eric looked at her with pride. I knew it, you've always had a gift with machines. She smiled, thank you for everything, for not giving up on me. Eric shook his head gently. Stella, I didn't help you out of pity. I saw your strength when you were fixing my car that day. I saw something real in you. They drove in silence for a while. Then Eric pulled over by the beach. He looked into her eyes. Stella, he said softly, this 1 year with you has been the best part of my life. I want to do more than just support you. I want to build a life with you, if you'll let me. Tears filled Stella's eyes. She nodded slowly. Yes, Eric, I will. He took her hand and smiled. The sun shone behind them as the waves hit the shore gently, from a homeless girl to a student, from pain to purpose. Stella had found love, peace, and a new life, and this time she knew she truly belonged. Dear friends, this story teaches us something very deep. Never look down on anyone. That girl you see on the street today might be the woman sitting in a boardroom tomorrow. Just like Stella, many people are not lazy. They just need a little help and someone to believe in them also. True love is not about money or status. Eric saw Stella's heart, not her clothes, not where she slept, but who she really was. And that is what love should be. So tell me, what did you learn from this story? Please drop your thoughts in the comments section. I would really love to read from you. You might even help someone else with your words. There's another very interesting story coming up in just a few days, so please subscribe to my channel and turn on your notification bell so you'll be the first to know when I upload it. If you enjoyed this story, please hit the like button and share it with your friends.